I'm glad that we have a group of people who are interested in this subject. It's not an easy one to deal with. And of course, the problem of evil has been with us since the beginning of humanity. And evil seems to be an inescapable part of our world, immediately raising the question of whether evil or a proclivity or a tendency towards evil is really a part of human nature, or whether, if that was the case, we couldn't avoid it, or is it something that we can, in fact, avoid? Now, the problem is very important for the obvious reason that evil causes enormous suffering. So there's a demand to try to understand it and confront it. There are people who think that the problem of evil is somehow inscrutable. There were historians after the Second World War who said that we shouldn't even try to understand Hitler because only God can understand Hitler. He's sort of off the chart. But I think that's a mistake. I think we can't afford to dismiss evil as somehow absolutely unintelligible, because that would make it a lot more difficult to deal with, and it would make us pessimistic about it. Now, one of the arguments is that we try to make evil intelligible because we're afraid of it. And if we try to understand it, and we can understand it through social factors, through psychological factors, conscious and unconscious, and religious approaches, and so on, that all these ways are really defenses. They're really ways to manage our fear of evil. I don't think that makes it impossible to understand. Certainly we can be afraid of evil, but there's no reason that we shouldn't try to understand it, because the better we understand it, I think, the better we'll be able to deal with it. But at the same time, what I've found is that there's no unifying sort of overarching theory about the nature of evil, because there are so many different types of evil that every time you try to define evil rigorously, you always find that you've left out certain types of evil. Your definition doesn't include everything. So we're going to need several approaches, several theories. Now, a great deal has been said about evil from a conscious position, which I'll review, but I also want to add at some point the perspective of depth psychology. And the point about depth psychology is that we try to take into account the unconscious. And also, if I'm assuming that some of the people here might be psychotherapists, I want to describe the relevance of this problem for psychotherapists, which I think it's crucial for psychotherapists to understand this issue, because so much evil behavior depends on the psychological processes of the perpetrator. And quite often psychotherapists are dealing with the victims of evil, and occasionally we've had to deal with the perpetrators of evil. So it's relevant to psychotherapists. One of the major questions that this raises is the question of whether all human beings have the capacity for evil. Because if that was the case, we would have to ask, well, if that's the case, why are some of us better at restraining our evil impulses than other people? Is there really something special? If we look at the sort of paradigmatic instances of evil, think of Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin, these kind of characters, is there really something special about them? What is going on in their psyche? Is it all about complexes in Jungian, in negatively toned complexes, evil complexes, untrammeled narcissism? Is that what's motivating the evil behavior of these characters? I hope that's a big part of it, because we know quite a bit about the development of severe malignant narcissism and so on, which I'm going to talk about. So I just want to mention this debate about whether evil is sort of ultimately incomprehensible and a mystery, or whether we can really try to unpack it psychologically.